Today on the Matt Walsh. Number
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing out there? Well, it is currently October 24th, 2022. My name is Josh. Welcome to the channel. Appreciate if you're here. On this channel, we talk about news and politics and watch some fun videos and react to them. Hope you stick around. Hope you're having fun. Yeah, I've been gone for about maybe a little bit more than a week or so. So I'm on an every other week streaming schedule for anybody who wasn't aware. That can change if you follow this stream and if you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But until then, we're just gonna keep trudging along. We're gonna keep moving, gonna keep growing, keep watching videos, keep reacting to stuff. Anyway, let me know how your weekend went, how last week went. I stayed pretty unplugged from a lot of the news last week. From what I gather, not a whole lot happened, but some definitely interesting stuff. But yeah, it's what happens when you have a full-time job, and you know you can't always be here every other week. But either way, I'm glad to be here. I hope you are too. We got a couple fun things. We're gonna look at some news about UFOs. I am, if anybody's wondering, a believer in aliens. And for the most part, I like to think that UFOs definitely come around and fly around and hang out, and it's always, I feel like it's the fun kind of conspiracy theorizing, not like the damaging kind that we see like Alex Jones and types get away with. This, you know, it's more of like a fun, like, man, isn't that cool sort of stuff. UFOs aren't. Anyway, and then we're going to take a look at Liz Cheney's comments about the future of the GOP. We're going to look at a Vice documentary about the white replacement theory that's been kind of cropping up lately, and then we're going to look at Matt Walsh and end with the big one. So let's get into it. Let's get going. Let's have some fun, shall we? Okay.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Whoa.
All right, so those were U.S. Navy fighter pilots celebrating when they locked onto an unidentified object dashing across the sky back in 2015.
I really love, first of all, that that's their like immediate response is to cheer like they're watching a sports game. Like they see a UFO and they're like, "Let's go!" That'd be my response. 200%.
Videos like these have fueled years of UFO speculation and questions
Hello,
about
Blaze. You distracted
extraterrestrial
me
life.
for a brief
And now
moment.
NASA will be looking for more answers here. Today, the agency is officially
Are we
launching
not-
its study
guys.
on unidentified aerial phenomena.
Oh yeah,
and joining
that's
us
right.
now,
Now
CNN
it's
Space and Defense
UAPs.
correspondent
That's
Kristen
less
Fisher.
fun.
My goodness.
way less
I mean,
fun.
this is the kind of thing that back in the day you would have sort of laughed at, but now we've seen these videos taken by professionals in the military. What can you tell us about this team and the studies they'll be doing?
So this NASA study really joins, Congress, which has been investigating it, the Pentagon, which has been looking into all of these
hasn't been
incidents,
looking into
the Office
this
of the
stuff?
Director of National Intelligence, now NASA. They announced this study last summer.
So I'm gonna level with everybody here. Personally, all these organizations, Congress, everybody now investigating this. Nah, man, nah. They've known about this shit for like what, 30, 40 years? 200%. 200%. They've known about this shit. They're just now getting more comfortable telling the public because probably know some extra information. Something tells me if they want us to know.
And
Makes you
just
wonder.
on Friday, they decided to officially announce its team because the study, of course, starts today. And it's 16 individuals. These are people who are astronomers, astrophysicists, biologists, oceanographers. They've got a lot of former NASA, Pentagon, even some former FAA folks.
So just show me them aliens.
And former astronaut, a very famous former astronaut, Scott Kelly, who famously spent a year in space. And so what they're going to be doing is
Famously.
over the
It's
next
famous for
9
spending a
months
year
or
in
so,
space.
they're really going to be
That'd be
digging
super dope.
into
I would
all of the
200%.
unclassified
I don't know about a year.
data
Maybe
that's
like
out
a
there.
month.
Not the
I would wanna do
classified
like a
stuff.
month.
That's for the Pentagon and Congress.
Ah,
but NASA's going to
yeah.
be looking into the unclassified reports, and they're going to be looking at better ways to
Of course.
analyze and catalog this data that's coming in, not just from those Navy pilots and military folks, but from civilians and commercial entities, and how they catalog and store all of that data that's coming in, which is just a huge amount ever since this kind of renewed interest in UFOs has come about. And you know, Brianna, they are going to make all of these findings public, hopefully. They're shooting for mid-2023. But, you know, the big question is, why NASA now? Why is NASA getting in on this? Well, NASA says, you know, hey, it's always been our job to kind of explain the unexplainable or almost unexplainable. The Pentagon, Congress has really been trying for several months now. Now NASA wants to get in and say, you know, hey, we have lots of valuable assets up there too. Satellites, astronauts, space stations. We want to know what's up there just as much as everybody else.
So
Yeah, no
fascinating,
shit.
and those pictures are mesmerizing. You have the coolest job, Kristen
I think
Fisher,
so.
at CNN. Thank you so much.
Let's discuss with former NASA astronaut and retired Air Force Colonel Terry Virts. Colonel, great to see you. How do you think they might go about this investigation?
Well, I think
So it looks like, for anybody not sure what's going on, so it seems like NASA and a couple other institutions are starting to kind of what's the word? Kind of look into more of like the UAP phenomenons and stuff. And like, you know, we're gonna talk about like real politic in like after this, but I kind of just wanted to take a detour into like some fun, goofy speculation, because you know, honestly, the idea of, you know, there's always the like back and forth of like, oh, are there other you know, are there other civilizations? Are there people on other planets and all that stuff? I always find that stuff immensely fascinating, and you could talk about it for like ever and honestly like come to the same conclusion of like, well, we have no idea. But I always find it like super fun, because it's like, man, like all the, you know, we've had all the videos from like, you know, I think it was like 2014, there was like a bunch of videos that got released and stuff like that. Always a lot of fun. I just like this stuff. I'm always super into watching UFO stuff, just because it, you know, it's fucking aliens, man. Like fucking other what's it called, sentient like beings around the universe. So always fun to me. But I promise we'll get to real politic here. I just want to just a little, just humor me for a bit. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun speculation.
I think the big thing for them
Then
is
we'll get
going to be
into
to
it.
get data, which is something that's different than what we used to have back in the 1950s when there was a lot of quote unquote UFO sightings. We have radar tracks from Navy ships. We have infrared cameras from Navy pilots. And I've had a few guys on my podcast, Down to Earth with Terry Virts, that have talked about the data. I think that's going to be their focus.
What are you hoping they might find?
Well, what I'm really hoping is that they get to the bottom of it to the extent they can. Clearly, every sighting cannot be explained, but I think we're
Clearly.
going to get a little bit more
You can't
color
explain it,
and,
man.
detail on exactly what these things
You
are.
can't do
Many
it.
of them are probably just drones or atmospheric sightings, but some of the cameras and radar tracks that the Navy fighter pilots have seen are really interesting, and they really seem like not normal aircraft type of things.
You're a former fighter pilot, former NASA astronaut. I just gotta ask, do you believe aliens exist?
Of course he does.
Well, that's a complicated question. I've never seen them myself. It seems with all the billions of planets that are out there, you'd think that there must be some life out there.
Wow.
I think that life is very complicated and that somebody has to make it or get it started just from a scientific point of view. It's so complicated. The problem is those planets and stars are so far away. It would take thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years to get there. So I think there is life, but I can't be sure.
This past May,
Why we need to develop wormhole technology. No, I don't know like anything about any of the science of what dude's talking about, but like to me it's the idea that we would be the only type of people in even just the known universe, let alone the unknown universe. Like the idea that we're the only ones like us Like, we create art, we create civilization, shit like that. Like, that to me is nuts. Like, I'm like, no, we are not that special. To think that we are, as a species, could possibly be that special is it's just lunacy to me. He's like, oh, it would take like hundreds of thousands of years to get to any of these planets. Man, they got warp drives. We know what. Yeah, we all seen Star Wars. We all know how the warp drive works. But yeah, it's just, there's almost no way, right? Like, there's almost no way.
Pentagon officials testified before a House panel. They revealed there are now close to 400 reports from military personnel of possible UFO encounters. And they say they are reasonably confident one of the sightings was that of a drone, but so far investigators have not found evidence of either extraterrestrial life or a major technological advancement by a foreign adversary like Russia or China. I do wonder, though, if the intel community, if the Pentagon, with all of its resources, couldn't get to the bottom of this. Do you have confidence NASA will?
Well, that's a good question.
My dude said,
intel and defense communities will take a certain angle.
They're going to have to,
these are
astrophysicists
astrophysicists and scientists and
info
tech
from other
startup
places.
kind of
So
people. They'll take a different angle at it. But the bottom line is we have data now. There are radar tracks that exist. There are infrared tracks that exist. The fighter pilots who are reporting it are not in the UFO Society. These are not the kind of people that wake up in the morning
like me
wanting to see a UFO. They don't want to see a UFO. And so
how do you not want to see a UFO?
I think there is definitely some legitimate stuff here. I'm sure a lot of it is explainable by drones. But from what I've heard, like I said on my podcast, there are some things that are definitely questionable. And these are reasonable people that are bringing up these questions.
It's so interesting, really fascinating. Colonel Terry Virts, thanks for the discussion today.
Yeah. Just some fun stuff. We're not gonna, I don't necessarily want to always start with doom and gloom. I mean, that's, what kind of fun show would this be if we just always talked about the doom and gloom of American politics? Have some fun, guys. Have some fun. But yes, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Liz Cheney, one of the heads of the January 6th committee, who recently lost her bid in the Republican primary for, I believe, Wisconsin. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's one of the W's, so it's either Wisconsin or Wyoming. I think it's Wyoming. I'm pretty sure it's Wyoming. I could be wrong though. But either way, she has been kind of at the forefront of this, of the Never Trump Republican movement, which I just want to say I do not give a shit about. Look, the Never Trump Republicans are as useful as they are in each moment. And at any point, I would cut Liz Cheney loose. I'd cut the parachute pretty quickly on her. Because quite frankly, I mean, look, Never Republicans are just neocons from the early 2000s. So to say that their time in politics is what was damaging and led to this moment would be an understatement, but also they're not arguing for much different stuff. At the end of the day, Liz Cheney didn't vote differently from Donald Trump. The only real thing that she did was oppose some of the rhetoric and, push back against the January 6th stuff. But, that's kind of, what's the word? It's kind of bare minimum that you got to do to get any kind of credit from me. Is oh my God, excuse me. No, I'm not. And I am not Crusty Feet, although that's a funny name. But no, they are, to me, only useful in terms of attacking to the right and pulling that party back to at least what is theoretically the center. But anyway, let's take a look at what she thinks. She showed up on CNN, I presume, to kind of talk more about the schism within the Republican Party. So let's take a look at where her head is at.
Cheney, who is still a Republican, is talking about what might happen if Donald Trump runs again.
Crusty Feet, nobody's forcing your kids to be trans. I just want you to know that.
I think that the party has either got to come back from where we are right now, which is a very dangerous and toxic place, or the party will splinter and there will be a new conservative party that rises. And if Donald Trump is the nominee of the Republican Party, the party will shatter, and there will be a conservative party that rises in his place.
Tara thinks or hopes?
I think she hopes. I think she sees herself as that splinter, as the standard bearer of the new anti-Trump Republican Party. The question is, you know, are there enough people behind her in the GOP primary electorate that could actually make that happen? I think
So yeah, I would actually have to mostly agree with her that the primaries that are going to be coming up is kind of going to set the bellwether for basically all conservative politics for quite a while. The same way in 2016, Trump kind of reset the boundaries of conservative rhetoric and also like conservative what's the word governance during his administration. So, you know, as the primaries start to roll up and as we get, you know, we are getting a lot closer to them, but a lot of that's also going to manifest, and we're going to see in real time. And honestly, I can't wait. It's going to be super interesting. But we're going to see kind of what the Republican electorate is, what's the word I'm looking for, is okay with, and what they're going to be supporting. So on one side, you're going to have Liz Cheney and people more aligned with her that are going to be more like traditional neoconservatives from like 90s and early 2000s, who are going to be pushing a lot more, I wouldn't call moderate from a leftist perspective, but certainly from their perspective, a much more centrist, centrist political ideology. A lot more of, you know, not as much of this like crazy anti-government talk. I mean, that has been part of the Republicans' kind of national project, is anti-federal government specifically, but overall anti-government that they don't agree with. But that's going to be kind of what's going to be pushing back against, I don't really want to say new. I know a lot of people like to say that the MAGA stuff and more of the Trump style of conservative politics is new. At least to me, it's not. It's kind of always been there. But for the most part, I think the Republican Party has done a good job at rejecting some of its more fringe and hardcore base over definitely my lifetime, up until 2016. Come 2016, you got, I think, a party captured by its base, which in and of itself isn't necessarily like bad. But when your base is, when the hardcorest of your base is, anti-trans, white supremacists, white replacement obsessed boomers, quite frankly, you have a problem. You have a deep problem when your base is not plugged into reality, and they've been handed over completely to the culture wars that they see on Fox News. And at the end of the day, Fox News and the GOP are at blame for this. Everything Liz Cheney is pushing back against is everything that her party has been creating. They created this situation regardless of what, regardless of how much pushback she wants to give and everything else. She's created this situation. Her party has created this monster. So it is going to be interesting to see what wins out at the end of the day. But
I think she's going to be an interesting dynamic during the election if she does run, because she will get all of the press. You've got like half a dozen candidates all made by Trump, associated with him historically, and they're not going to be hitting him. And she might be there on the campaign trail, or maybe even on the debate stage, just pummeling him. And she might be the contrast. And who knows, she may end up rising up as this standard bearer. I don't think she'll still get enough votes to win the primary.
Well, but there are two things here, right? I mean, one is clearly the possibility that Liz Cheney is running to warn Republicans about Trump. Look, Trump's a lot of things. He's not conservative, and that's her core point. The other issue is whether there could be a third-party independent conservative challenge, which is kind of along the lines of what we're seeing Evan McMullin mount against Mike Lee.
Crusty Feet, I just want to say, if you would like to come on and tell me about that, because I could ask you about your experience at your son's school, but quite frankly, I'm just going to be waiting for you to reply in the comments, and it's going to slow everything down. But if you'd like, if you're comfortable, please head down in the description at the bottom. There should be an email address. Go ahead, send me an email, and we can set something up. We can have a little chit chat.
Pretty effectively. But that's actually about one-party states and actually drawing that contrast really clearly. But I do think it represents the fact that for true old-school conservatives, a return of Donald Trump is the opposite of everything they believe, and they're not going to simply appease him, as some folks.
So this is leaning into a lot of the we saw Biden talk about this. It's like the MAGA Republicans sort of stuff. And to me, as far as I can tell, most of that is going to be just marketing. A lot of that is marketing. A lot of times I think that pundits, and in terms of like broad party politics, you want to differentiate yourself from these groups. But quite frankly, old school Republicans, the guys he's talking about who like don't want Donald Trump and and all the rest of the stuff, understand those guys at the end of the day didn't vote any different. They got the tax cuts that they wanted. The thing that they didn't get was that respectability, on top of having somebody at the top of their party who was very mask off about their about their racism, about their what's the word, their anti-LGBT, anti-trans, all that stuff, just very open. And the Republican Party, and any party that runs specifically negative campaigns 100% of the time, Republicans don't really want to run on like positive positions, they run on opposing things. But when you have a party like that, they need some kind of air of respectability, of being reasonable, and Donald Trump takes that reasonability away from them.
Folks looking to get into power in the short term are willing to do.
When I saw the word splinter, and again, she wasn't focused on this, the Republican Party rules in the primary benefit someone who can get 30, 40%, which is Donald Trump. I mean, she may be right that it will splinter, but if it splinters, he may be the beneficiary, which isn't what she was focused on there.
The January 6th committee vice chairwoman, Liz Cheney, not ruling out public testimony if Donald Trump complies with a committee subpoena. But whether it's in public or behind closed doors, Cheney promising the panel would not allow it to become a spectacle. You'll remember the committee subpoenaed Trump Friday. It wants testimony under oath.
We are not going to allow
Television
the former
spectacle is not
president.
gonna be.
He's not going to turn this into a circus. This isn't going to be.
Now that's where you're wrong. He's absolutely going to turn this into a circus. Ma'am, you've been had. There's almost no chance that Donald Trump doesn't turn this into a circus.
Be, his first debate against Joe Biden and the circus and the food fight that became. This is far too serious set of issues.
Our great reporters are back with us. Is there anyone at the table who thinks that Donald Trump would comply with this subpoena and not fight it for months and months past the life of the committee?
No. He's going to drag it out.
Right. I mean,
Rockcott, I have no idea what language that is.
Is with Donald Trump. I mean, this was his
But hello
tactic
anyway.
in the White House when he faced a litany of legal troubles, congressional oversight, congressional requests for information. They dragged it out, put it through the courts, and I would not be surprised if that was the tactic here.
And
And this idea that they're not going to have a circus. The problem is that, Donald Trump leads the circus. He brings it wherever he goes. He loves a rally. He's a showman. If in some, world, he did testify,
the guy is a walking wrestling promo.
That's just a
like,
you also asked tongue-in-cheek earlier, whether if there was a guarantee of a evening showing if President Trump would say, former President Trump would say yes. And I mean, he does like the attention, as we all know. All attention is good attention for him. But the likelihood of that happening, based on what Representative Cheney said, is very low.
I would suspect his lawyers would say no.
Ixnay.
Absolutely no. Ixnay. Ixnay is a better way to put it. Cheney obviously has made quite clear she's not a fan of Trump. She thinks he's a threat to the Republican Party and the country. She also made clear in this interview that she's going to take issue with people like the Virginia governor, Glenn Youngkin, a rising Republican star, but was out campaigning in Arizona recently. He has also campaigned with other election deniers. Liz Cheney says for her, that's a litmus test.
I think they are really indefensible decisions. And, I've said I think that Glenn Youngkin has done a good job as governor of Virginia. But nobody should be out advocating for the election of people who will not honor the sanctity of our elections process. And, people who do that are in fact.
And this is like, understand, this is like a bare minimum of a bar to pass. when it comes to liberal democracies. Like, at the end of the day, there are going to be people there are people in the Democratic Party that are consistently pushing and propping up Liz Cheney as some, shiny beacon of conservatism. Understand, Liz Cheney has a awful record and is as much of a war hawk and conservative ghoul as anybody else. But she just so happens to want regular democracy because, I mean, let's be honest, Liz Cheney is not exactly somebody who I think would be open about their anti-democratic stances. In America, I'm sure she likes to think she is, but her father was kind of the reason we had the whole Iraq fiasco. So not exactly somebody with a stellar track record of critique.
In fact, putting politics ahead of the Constitution and ahead of the country.
She's making that argument 15 days from the
Yeah,
midterms,
which
but this is also
the
a
Republican Party has
foundational
always
argument
put
she's gonna
party
continue to
over
make as we go from
country,
2022
like
into
200%.
2024. The question is,
They've
can
always
she
done that.
succeed,
That's always been a
or is
thing.
she a minority in the new Republican Party?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that she's a minority right now, and I think specifically on Liz
This
Cheney,
guy
the
looks
question
really
is
sad.
Also, what platform will she have?
What is your face, dude?
Starting next year, when she's no longer a member of Congress, when she's no longer the vice chair of this committee, does she decide to run for president? Does she find another way to keep this message going? But she is, for sure, at least in terms of people in the party speaking publicly and advocating for that, not in the majority on this issue.
And so it's interesting in the sense that Youngkin says Joe Biden won the election, but he tries to obviously keep faith, keep support among the people like Carrie Lake, among election deniers. Liz Cheney says, I don't want any part of that. She also said in that interview that if Trump is the nominee, she is certain there'll be a fracturing and a new conservative movement, conservative party will come out.
The party will have been boarded
future.
at that
Might that
point.
be it?
I mean, I'm not quite sure Liz Cheney is correct that if Trump is the nominee, that the party would fracture. I mean, even Mitch McConnell, who is one of Trump's biggest antagonists, has said if he is the nominee in 24, he would support him. I do think there is going to be a consolidation if, again, Trump is, and that is, again, a big if President Trump is leading the Republican Party in 2024. But the problem for Liz Cheney, along with what Jeff said, is that a litmus test for her is not a litmus test for the rest of the party. Right. I think Republicans have made a calculation that even if they dismiss the election denials that are coming from some of the candidates,
Rockcott, if you
that winning
follow,
for them is
I'll give you an
better,
answer.
is better for them at the end of the day, so they can win, put in place Republican policies. So they're kind of overlooking that here, and Liz Cheney is a very lonely voice here.
She's a lonely voice who's hoping that these election deniers lose, so that she can make the case after the election. See, I told you so. We should have won that governor's office. We should have won that Senate seat, and we didn't.
Well, I think she also said.
Yeah, that's like kind of like, I understand that's like the electoral argument. It's also taking the weakest possible stance. Like, it doesn't matter whether Trump-style Republicans like win or lose. You should be opposing them. This is the thing. Liz Cheney's trying to make the argument that electorally they should go her direction. She's not making the argument, she pretends that she makes the argument, that she's like, oh, I'm like thoroughly against me. But at the end of the day, she wants to like win elections. That is the thing she's trying to do, So at the end of the day, when she comes that to me, that's her real position is, she wants to, win elections, and she wants to prove that her style of politics wins more elections. When it's like, I don't got a problem with her style of politics. I have a problem with both their styles of politics. Both of them are pushing for the same awful things. The only difference is one's being honest about it and the other one isn't. I mean, quite frankly. Under Biden. I told you, Rockcott, you need to follow, and I'll answer your question. But anyway. Oh, man. Well. Hey, there you go. All right. So, do you like? Well, okay. Are you for Biden? Do you like what America? Okay, I'll answer all these briefly. Are you for Biden? It depends. It really super depends. Do you like what America looks like under Biden? I don't really like what America has looked like for the last, like, all of my life. So not significantly more. I'd say, it's the problem I have with Biden is that there is only a set of solutions that he is willing to apply to any problem that I think are not enough to solve the largest problem. Like, his solutions are never going to be enough to solve our problems. How do you feel about Russians who are against the war? Love you guys. I'm really, being anti-war in America during Iraq was, I was, how old was I? I was like under 50. I was under 13 probably. Yeah, I was like 9. So I was 9 when 9/11 happened. So, we invaded, what's the word? We invaded in 2002, I believe. So I was 10. And being like against the war from the ages of like between like 10 and let's say 15 was like kind of hard as a kid because, you kind of see this war and you're like, I guess there's a good reason. And then like as you grow older and older, you realize, holy shit, there was like no reason for the Iraq war. And then as you get even older and older, you're like, holy shit, there wasn't even not a reason. There was like an awful ulterior motive and has led to like hundreds of thousands of unnecessary deaths. And then, you're just like, what the fuck? But, obviously if, growing up through that process, it had to have been so much easier, especially compared to Russians right now with the war in Ukraine. I mean, people get like locked up and arrested just for speaking out against the war. So no, absolutely, I support any Russian who is against the war, and I support any Ukrainian who is fighting right now to protect their sovereign land. Both sides are victims of their administration, of the Putin administration. Both sides are victims of this. There is not I don't like the weird, like, let's throw all Russians in with the Russian government. No, there is a distinct and very obvious delineation between state actors and the actual people that they're governing. And, everyone's hurting in that country because of what? For some land in Ukraine? Like, the war is complicated. There are nuances to it, but at the end of the day, like, it's a needless war. And the people of Russia are suffering. The people of Ukraine are suffering. My hearts go out to everybody. I would prefer this all to be over, but there's only one person who can do that, and that's Vladimir Putin, when he can decide to walk his troops right the fuck out. So, but yeah, those are my thoughts. I appreciate your follow. I realize I bent you over a barrel there, but had to do it. I only got like, as you can see, I only have so many followers, so got to do it. But anyway, let's take another look here. So, moving right along. Why is the description not? Is it like down here? Why is there like nothing down here? That's weird. Anyway, doesn't matter. So what we're gonna take a look at next is a pretty small documentary by Vice about the kind of great replacement rhetoric that's been going on in the U.S. and what that's kind of led to. So let's just like take a look. Let's like see all what's going on. Sure, people are kind of at least vaguely familiar with everything that's going on. So.
In May 2022, a domestic terrorist murdered 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York.
The alleged shooter wearing full body armor and tactical gear, targeting people of color.
This is an absolute racist hate crime.
They're reviewing a 180-page manifesto reportedly written by the shooter, where he describes his perceptions about the dwindling size of the white population.
The attack was followed by the depressingly familiar round of platitudes about thoughts and prayers, as well as the usual series of arguments and evasions around gun control in America.
The 18-year-old terrorist who stormed into my community armed with an AR-15, killing 10 people and injuring 3 others, received a shotgun from his parents for his 16th birthday.
Jesus. Okay. We got to talk really quick, because I talked about this on a previous stream. You should go check out the stream VOD. It's up on my YouTube channel under the same name. But we talked a little bit about toxic gun culture in the U.S. and kind of some of the pitfalls of that. And quite frankly, there is almost no justification you could give me that, kids should be receiving shotguns and other firearms for their birthdays, that seems just a bit much. Especially shotguns. Shotguns to me are, it's just it's a bit much. But this is going to tie in a lot to not just toxic gun culture in the U.S., but also the toxic politics that surrounds it, and kind of the messiness of gun culture right about now. So keep in mind that there are a lot of people who want to see like super strict Japan style gun control laws. I think in the US that's we kind of have a different kind of culture, and we have a different kind of format to our society. I don't really think that's plausible or even really something that's like necessary. I think a lot of it comes down to gun culture in the US and how closely it's tied to anti-government sentiment, and how close it's tied to, quite frankly, fragile masculinity. So anyway, let's just keep going.
Rural Colorado, an AR-15 is a gun of choice for killing raccoons before they get to our chickens.
But
Now
what's
that-
often been missing from the
Now
discussion?
that is monstrous. Let me be clear. Let me be incredibly clear with everybody on this stream. We here at this stream, we are pro raccoon. We are pro trash panda here. That is not okay. Should not be attacking. Look, I understand chickens, but you can get chickens anywhere, man. Raccoons? No. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Discussion around this shooting is how it neatly fits into a pattern of white supremacist terror attacks directly inspired by the Christchurch mosque massacres of 2019. This is how
I'm not
racist
gonna lie, that
conspiracy
feels
theories and emerging
so-
tech platforms have
Christchurch
combined
feels so
to
long
create
ago.
the template for a chilling new form of gamified, live-streamed far-right terror.
And this morning, we're getting an exclusive look at the moment the shooter was arrested and the warning signs that were missed.
Investigators are going to be pouring through.
Yo, my dude was like ready for Nam, son. My man had the fucking boots, the fucking camo. My dude was ready for Nam.
Multiple online posts that this alleged shooter made.
Before his attack, the Buffalo shooter released a manifesto on Discord, largely centered around a conspiracy theory known as the Great Replacement, a fantasist notion that there's a shadowy plot to replace white people in Europe and the US with non-white immigrants.
Forced mass immigration, population replacement, diversity quotas, and
Oh, does Red Ice TV even still exist anymore? I've seen a bit of this. Okay, let's look at this. Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. In the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts: a national, ethnical, I didn't even know that was a word, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction in whole or in part. So I'm assuming, I'm going to make the bold assumption, because Red Ice TV is a fascist propaganda site channel, that they're reading what these are the Geneva Convention, I'm assuming, to which they're trying to make the argument that mass immigration is they're trying to use killing members of a group, which you couldn't really explain by random crime. Also, immigrants tend, especially in America, we'll speak about, commit less crime than native-born citizens. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, which mental harm is the one that they seem to highlight, which tells me that mental harm means, I had to say, I had to pick one for English instead of just immediately it going to English on the voicemail machine or whatever. So I'm sure they'll count that as mental harm. And conditions to bring about its physical destruction. Well, naturally, they didn't want to highlight of life calculated because they just want to say that anything that brings physical destruction, which means they'll be like, oh, the housing prices went down. Also, let's look. What's the Geneva Convention? I'm curious. Geneva Convention. What is it? Genocide? Nope. Go back. Genocide. Here we go. Let's find out. What did they say? Okay, so let's see. They're looking at Article 2. Can I find Article 2 on here? Myanmar definition. Okay, let's see. Any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part. What did she say? In present convention, genocide means any following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national. Okay. Causing serious bodily, mental, deliberately inflicting group on the group of conditions life, imposing measures intended and forcibly. Article 3 defines the crime that can be punished under the convention. Genocide, conspiracy to commit genocide. Direct. Convention is passed. Outlaw Armenian genocide, Holocaust. Yep, those are two very obvious genocides. Yeah, like these are like rather broad. Like you know, racial. Yeah, like. Intent to destroy is probably like the biggest thing to me, because at no point is any immigrant like, yeah, I totally came here to fuck with Whitey. Like that's what I came here for. Which, funny they didn't want to like highlight intent.
Lies about white privilege and how only white people can be racist.
Obvious truths about the ongoing program of genocide against my race.
Predictably, the people supposedly running this plot.
Let me just say, as a leftist, anybody part of this community who's a leftist, we believe that anybody can be racist, because everybody can. Because racism isn't just a white people thing.
Are the Jews.
Ah, yes. The classic rock of genocide
The Great
targets.
Replacement conspiracy
Oh,
theory
God.
has been doing the round since around 1916.
Is that guy part of the master race? That guy without a neck?
1916, when it was proposed by the American lawyer and eugenicist Madison Grant. It resurfaced in the 1970s.
Look at that
with the
stash.
neo-Nazi
Oh
David
my
Lane,
God.
who was
That's an
eventually
amazing
imprisoned and
mustache.
charged with participating in the assassination of a Jewish radio host. But in its modern form, Great Replacement theory was popularized by the French white supremacist Renaud Camus.
The fucking French.
There is an invasion. I think there is a colonization. Europe is colonized by Africa.
As you can see, we are being colonized by Africa, and for that reason, they are all trying to genocide us by moving here and living in our neighborhoods. We do not like their weird African food. We like our delicious snails and other fine things. Fucking motherfuckers.
In a much more deeper way that Europe ever colonized Africa.
Wait.
That Europe ever colonized Africa in a much more deeper way that
The French.
Well, I think there is an invasion. I think there is a colonization. Europe is colonized by Africa in a much more deeper way that Europe ever colonized Africa.
What? Okay. So this person's obviously has like fucking brain rot. But the idea, so I want everyone to remember, African colonization by European countries was not people moving into your neighborhood and opening some businesses that some other people who live in their neighborhood can patronize. And guess what? You can also patronize. Like, that's not an invasion. That's called people moving. But of course, this guy, what happened in Africa was not moving to your neighborhood. What happened to Africa was not Europeans moving into the neighborhood and bringing their and specifically the British, bringing their trash fucking food. No, colonization in Africa was broadly people militarily entering the country, seizing land, and selling individuals from that country to each other. The colonization of Africa was spread over multiple hundreds of years and has damaged Africa's ability to grow as a country for multiple hundreds of years afterwards. And this guy is complaining because some brown and black people move down the street and maybe don't speak French as well as he does. Understand, this guy is complaining, is talking about an invasion. When all that happened, these people moved. They filled out some immigration papers and they moved. Or they came from war-torn countries, which, guess what, are the way they are because of Europe's extraction of wealth and resources. So the more desperate that people are in those societies, the more violent they become because resources are scarce. And then when some people finally get lucky enough to escape those countries, what happens? Europeans like this guy want to turn them back around and send them back to the hellscapes that they set up for them. So I kindly say, fuck this guy, and let's keep moving. Actually, no, wait. It's time. It's time. All right, guys. Give me like a minute. I have to go grab laundry, and then I'll be back. I told you, this is not... If you want me to grab laundry less, you should follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You know, we need to build this thing up if we want all these interruptions gone. But for now, enjoy some fun music. I'll be back in probably 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Wait a minute. All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, let's get right into it.
If you look at the kind of surge in popularity of Great Replacement theory, it's really in the 2010s, and it's really, really important to localize that to fringe internet culture, where these same ideas can gather speed, gather velocity, and gather popularity, and then spread from there to more mainstream spaces.
In 2011, these ideas fueled one of the world's deadliest ever white supremacist terror attacks.
3:26 p.m., a massive car bomb shatters downtown Oslo. The target, the Prime Minister's office. But this horror is only beginning.
When a far-right extremist named Anders...
I don't think I've actually ever seen, like, footage from that. Jesus.
Behring Breivik murdered 77 people in Norway, the vast majority of them children at a summer camp.
A television helicopter caught the gunman in the act. Bodies laying all around him, children in the water, their hands in the air.
Has said he wanted to start a revolution.
Oh my God. Wow. Look at that. Look at that. Wow, that is the... Yeah, that's the, that's definitely the face of a serial killer. Oh my God. I would have called the cops on that guy the first time I met him. Jesus.
Wanted to start a revolution.
That guy looks like he's made of IKEA furniture. Like he himself is sentient IKEA furniture. Oh my God, it's awful. Uncanny Valley, get out.
The man who confessed to the horrific massacre.
Ugh.
Breivik, who was obsessed with the idea that white Europeans were being replaced.
Oh my, it's even worse.
Intended for the
How'd you
attack
get uglier,
to inspire
dude?
other right-wing extremists to rise up and follow in his path.
Hours before his murderous rampage, he posted this disturbing video and 1,500-page manifesto online, calling on European right-wingers to embrace martyrdom.
God damn, talk about how 1,500 pages. That's like longer than most of my papers from college. Jesus. Dude, get a life. Get some hobbies, man. This is, this is the problem with our society. People don't have hobbies anymore. People don't have interests.
These were attacks on the children of a liberal political party in Norway, as well as a bombing in Oslo. These were attacks not on immigrants. These were not attacks on refugees. He wanted to strike out at what he viewed as the people related to this political power that he felt was responsible for destroying Norway.
But Breivik's actions didn't have the effect he wanted. Even for hardcore neo-Nazis, the mass murder of school children, most of them white, wasn't something they could get behind.
This terrorist attack was not something that was widely adopted by the European far right.
But one man would eventually follow Breivik's lead.
Police in New Zealand are urging people to stay off the streets and to avoid mosques in the coming hours.
41 killed in one location alone, 7 at another mosque, and 1 person dying in hospital.
The man who is claiming responsibility and charged with murder is an extreme right-wing white supremacist.
Nearly 9 years later, an Australian white supremacist named Brenton Tarrant carried out a devastating Islamophobic terror attack.
Oh my God. I'm just gonna say it. All these dudes are ugly as fuck. Like, no wonder they went postal, man. It's not my deepest political analysis, I know, guys, but
murdering 51
sometimes you just gotta call a spade a spade.
In Christchurch, New Zealand.
The blood is spitting on me, splashing on me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, it's gonna happen to me now. But fortunately, I'm alive.
Tarrant explicitly modeled himself on Breivik, citing him in his manifesto as his true inspiration, and sharing his delusional self-image of being a kind of medieval knight fighting to defend European civilization.
Police recovered automatic weapons in a horrifying twist. They say the man streamed his massacre live from a body camera and left a long anti-immigrant document.
He live streamed his attack. He turned it into this very horrific visual event. His manifesto is spread in a specific way online where he referenced memes, where he referenced sort of the internet culture he was a part of and came out of. The key difference here
the
is
idea that he got
the
that
attack
far
was really made for
on like
audience,
Facebook,
and that audience was
like for so long is the nuts part. Like how they didn't catch that.
By taking and innovating
is
on
like
Breivik's
insane.
MO, Tarrant achieved what the Norwegian terrorist had tried and failed to do, to actually inspire a wave of angry young racists to follow him in committing acts of mass murder. Firstly, he chose a different target, singling out the Muslim community that was the object of his hatred, and whose murder was more likely to arouse the race war fantasies of the extremists he wanted to inspire. This was the first time that
look, these are the writings of madmen and people who are so brain rotted from, I'm not 100% sure what at this point, but people who are at a point where they are so afraid of immigrants, of people they don't know coming in and attacking them, that they lash out at like just random people from a community in this to them, this was defense. That's the part that should really scare you, is to them, this was defense. This was them defending themselves. In their head, there's this tide of immigrants and this tide of outsiders that, that they're trying to get society to realize is attacking them and and like they're just brain broken, man. They're just brain broken, and that's the dangerous part. Like 100, like that's the dangerous part, because like you can't talk these people out of some of this stuff. You know, they're so deep into their psychosis of like this this racism and xenophobia, and it's why, you know, xenophobia, in my opinion, needs to be stamped out as much as possible in a society, because you will eventually, you know, there's patriotism, which is to me a very light form of xenophobia, but like that sort of stuff needs to be, you know, taken care of and kind of washed out of the society a little bit better. You know, in the US, we have a problem with, I think, patriotism to a degree, in terms of people being just a bit buying into a bit too much of the American exceptionalism. And with that comes people like this who see themselves as part of this movement, because at the end of the day, they don't know their place. And I sympathize with people not knowing their place. I, to this day, don't really know my place. I don't know where I personally fit in society, in like, you know, because when you grow up, and we're going to get a little personal here. I am 30, and a lot of my classmates are still, our generation is still kind of stuck in this weird limbo, in my opinion, where like, you know, it's really hard to buy a house. It's like starting families is really tough, unless like, you know, unless you did really well in college and you got yourself a good job coming out of it. You know, assuming even medium, we'll say, what's it called? You know, like, you know, they say, you know, you go to college and everything else, you incur a lot of debt, but you might start a little bit higher to the top. You know, you do a bit of college, you know, maybe you graduate with just a bachelor's in something that's more, you know, that's not like, you know, coding or something like that. You'll live in like the middle or so. And, you know, if you didn't do any of those two things, then you're going to end up kind of in the lower class, right? And as we've seen the middle class shrink and be squeezed, it becomes more and more that people can't fit into that happy center and end up working jobs and making money that they thought would get them into the middle class, but suddenly it keeps them, that's still not enough somehow. And it's a real problem around the world, because, you know, as the world has kind of expanded, I think, with the proliferation of the internet, you know, people tend to, you know, I remember reading a quote where it was like, you know, the feeling of always being connected, but, you know, never been more connected in my life, but I'm somehow more alone than I ever was before. And I think that really feeds into the damaged mental state of a lot of people these days. People don't know what they're supposed to be doing. You know, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you were supposed to go to college, get like really any degree for the most part. You go get a job in that field, you get a middle class income, you buy a house, maybe you have some kids, and you know, you save up for retirement. When you're retired, you go travel a bit, you go hang around the world until your time comes. But as that's become less of a reality for people, you know, when buying a house seems like an utter impossibility, you wonder, well, what am I supposed to be doing? How do I fit into society? And that's super hard to figure out, especially when you're young like these kids. But I think more than anything, what the internet has taught us, and what I think part of this show is for me, is making my own place. And I think people, and it's hard making your own place. It's hard doing that. It's not't But I think that there's a certain amount of, you know, with the internet, there's a certain amount of space, a workable enough amount of space that I think people could be able to kind of make their own space in this world and make their own place in this world. But, you know, sometimes you don't fall down those traps. You don't fall into those traps where you like, you know, video editing. You know, maybe you like doing photography, you know, you don't like doing photography. Maybe, you know, or those skills, somehow you end up on sites like 4chan, like any of those, I think it's like 8chan is the one that a lot of these guys come from. But, you know, you don't end up, not everyone ends up in those, I think, enriching and positive spaces. Some people, unfortunately, end up in these soup bowls of like racism and xenophobia, and you know, it's hard getting people out of those, and it's hard to explain to them how to make their space in the world. But I think what, you know, governments and societies broadly need to do a better job of giving people in their societies more leeway to pursue their interests, to do the things that they love, not do the things that the market deem are valuable, because we all don't live for a market. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I've been rambling. Let's get back. I just, you know, the crisis for men these days, I think is worthy of discussion. I don't know if we approach the problem the right way.
Terrorist attack had been live streamed in action, creating a devastatingly effective new form of propaganda.
Now, you can't find a single person who's tried to do an act of like right-wing inspired terrorism who hasn't been influenced or doesn't reference Tarrant. It's all Christchurch copycats all the time.
This video shows suspect John Ernest going into the synagogue in April, shooting a woman.
Just 1 month after the Christchurch shooting, a gunman killed one person and injured 2 others at a synagogue in Poway, California.
Shooting around 11:30 this morning at Chabad of Poway. It's believed there was just one gunman involved. He walked in with a rifle.
He cited Tarrant as an inspiration in a letter posted to 8chan. Then in August 2019, 5 months after Christchurch, shooters in El Paso, Texas, and at a mosque in Bærum, Norway, also carried out attacks after posting online that they were directly inspired by Tarrant.
And also understand the gun conversation, the gun stuff when it comes to these shootings is not, is to me a bug, not the feature. You know, gun control will only do so much to kind of curb this sort of stuff. What is at the heart of this is a rot in society, and a rot in a very specific demographic of society. And, you know, we have to solve that problem. And I don't think, as much as I do believe that there are some gun control laws that we should be passing that would, you know, that would make these sorts of massacres more difficult, I don't think that's the end all be all solution. And I don't really think, to me, guns are not the problem. Guns are kind of just the tool that gets used in these scenarios. You know, I mean, you know, in America, again, we've talked about toxic gun culture, but yeah, the gun stuff isn't to me as important as the societal rot and kind of the societal trauma that's going on in these people's lives, in these groups' lives, I should say.
Investigators say the suspect expressed right-wing and anti-immigrant views online and was inspired by another notorious mosque attack.
On far-right forums, both Breivik and Tarrant have become memes, sometimes pictured as warrior saints.
Cringe.
Or as chads, borrowing imagery from men's rights message boards.
What is going on?
Live streams of far-right shootings attract a string of sarcastic inside jokes and shitposting.
50 is a great score, Brenton.
I love you, Brenton. Congratulations, Brenton, on 50 insane kills.
This also shouldn't be surprising, guys. There are people who like idolize and like really like the Columbine shooters. Like there's a community of people who like revere those people, not necessarily for the murders that they did, but kind of for the for their writings afterwards, like or writings before, I should say. So no, people kind of memeing and shitposting shouldn't be surprising. But understand there are definitely people who like these people, who are interested in them.
Desensitized commenters talking about a shooter's kill count in real time, as if they were watching a computer game, rather than an act of
Why do you guys?
If you go onto somewhere,
why do people say like a computer game? Guys, just say COD. Just say Call of Duty. Like, come on, stop it. You're not 50.
like 4chan or 8chan or one of the other kinds of image boards where a lot of Nazis hang out, you'll find them saying to would-be terrorists, get the high score. And in fact, they'll create little scoreboards of mass killers.
Despite the devastating toll of racist conspiracy theories like the Great Replacement, versions of them
top
are seeping into
five.
today's polarized political mainstream, being voiced by Republican politicians and popular TV pundits.
The left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement.
They can't win re-election in 2022 unless they bring in a large number of new voters to replace the voters that are already here. That's what this is about.
Right. So this is the sanitized version of basically the thing that all the 8chan and 4chan kids are talking about. Because Tucker Carlson is kind of doing the, what are you talking about? The I can't even say the word replacement. If I replaced my coffee filter, the left will get mad at me. That's not what we're mad at you, Tucker. That's not what we're mad at you about, Tucker. We're upset that you're actively pushing great replacement theory. Also, let's go listen to that really quickly. Let's listen to JD Vance.
Replacement.
They can't win re-election in 2022 unless they bring in a large number of new voters to replace the voters that are already here. That's what this is about.
So there's always a they. Understand there's always kind of a they, which already should be a bit of a red flag for everybody. But also understand what he's saying. He's making the argument that Democrats can't win elections unless they bring in new voters, right? Meaning, you know, in his mind, this is what's happening in his mind. In his mind, he is thinking that Democrats are, are lowering our immigration security, which is not happening, by the way. It's mostly just political rhetoric. But he believes that Democrats are defunding and lowering the immigration, the border security, so that immigrants from other countries can come in legally or illegally. In his mind, he's not going to say that, but he obviously means legally and illegally. He thinks that the election was stolen, and he thinks that they're moving them into neighborhoods, into already gerrymandered, by the way, neighborhoods, so that they can vote for Democrats. Like, this is, there's like brain rot, and then there's like this. So let me tell you what's actually happening. This is the crazy conspiracy. This is like the crazy thing that's actually happening in the real world. There are neighborhoods in America where people of higher melanin counts are moving into because they decided they wanted to live in a different neighborhood, because not everyone wants to live near the borders or near the coasts. And these people are moving in, and if they're citizens, they vote sometimes, and if they're not citizens, they don't vote sometimes. That's what's happening. And understand, to JD Vance and guys like him, if a brown or black person moves into your neighborhood, that necessarily now means that, that your vote is being taken away, that your voice is being silenced. For every black voice, a white voice must be silenced. And that's simply not the case. That's also an incredibly racist and really weird, by the way of looking at voting and democracy and basically everything else. That's not really how it works. For every blue M&M in a bag, it does not take away from a green M&M that's also in that bag. So this is these people. Now, granted, do I think JD Vance believes any of this? I don't actually know. I've seen very little of the guy. From what I've heard, he seems kind of stupid, but who knows? Maybe he just has been watching too much far-right media, I guess, which would be interesting, because that means that this guy who's born from far-right news channels like Fox News is now showing up on them as like kind of a physical manifestation of the propaganda that they push. But yeah, so this guy's brain is broken. And also, that's not how voting works. Like, at the end of the day, the idea that you would be like, no, we can't let brown people in because then they'll vote. And when I say I want something and they say I want the other thing, that's not fair. Like, no, that's how it works. That's kind of how democracy works. But what's up, Alex? I'm assuming you're talking about my glasses, in which case, thank you. I love my glasses.
Have an invasion in this country.
From Christchurch to Buffalo, these sort of shootings present a new form of white supremacist terrorist threat, a uniquely contemporary mix of conspiracist fantasy, nihilistic online shitposting, and depersonalized mass violence.
When people are being told that their political power, their economic power is being taken away from them by people who are, who are actively trying to disempower them, it's a message that really resonates with a lot of people.
It's decentralized terrorism without a formal group or command and control structure. They're often called lone wolf attacks, but this isn't really accurate. They emerge from a distinct online ecosystem and follow a clear pattern, paying homage to the terrorists who came before them and urging others to follow in their wake.
We can't think of these people as lone wolves or lone actors. We have to think of them as self-initiated terrorists. So someone who went out and decided to do something off the back of the ideology they'd imbibed. They act as one node in a network, but you have to understand that there's a huge number of people behind them, behind screens, who are supporting them, endorsing them, egging them on.
It's impossible to say where or when the next of these attacks might occur, but sadly, what's certain is that Buffalo won't be the last.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of all understand how, if you're aware of what stochastic terrorism is and just kind of the way these sorts of cells work, yeah, I mean, that should be pretty obvious to people. You kind of get riled up on the internet about this or that thing. We've all been in comment sections before. And, this one just happens to be about, what's the word? Keeping outsiders, immigrants out of your country. And most of the time, the people who participate in that are young white males. Not to say that I think any of that is inherent to young white males, but certainly there is a political force, again, such as Tucker Carlson, that kind of aligns these people nicely. It's not a good look. Not a good look at all. We live in a really wacky fucking times. So anyway, all right, so we got about a half an hour left. We have one last thing. So whenever I structure these streams, I hope anybody notices. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I try to have a through line as much as I can through all of the stories. So we kind of talked about the schism within the Republican Party, speaking on neocons and what's being branded as MAGA Republicans. We spoke about them. We kind of watched Liz Cheney give her dissertation on what will happen to the party. We kind of looked at what the most extreme version of MAGA Republicans are going to be looking like, which is going to be a lot of these online, meme-heavy, great replacement, obsessed, white supremacist guys, right? So, who else is kind of in this coalition? Because when you build political parties, what you're doing is building coalitions. You're building factions of people with not just like-minded opinions on individual topics, but what you want to do is create a party around kind of a shared view of the world. And one of those views of the world, is isolationism. So it's a lot of the, fear of people from outside, people from who don't look like you, other things like that. Another one is another aspect to that isolationism, to that xenophobia, is internal conflict. So, as groups like, that are on 4chan and 8chan and all these Nazis talk about and are worried about what's going on outside in their mind, outside the borders, and coming in to infect them, we have to think about the people who are also trying to create barriers within our society. One of those is our good friend, seen him on the show, Matt Walsh. I know you can hardly see him with his tiny little self over there, but I promise you it's Matt Walsh. You can see, as you can see, his lovely comment section. So, Matt Walsh, famous anti-trans activist, documentarian, what's the word? Pedo, and general all around, not great guy. He had a rally in, oh, let's take a look. I actually don't remember where this rally was at. Let's take a look, because I don't remember. Matt Walsh rally. I want to say, where was it? Was it in Nashville? Okay, it was in Nashville. Oh my god, dude. Okay. In Nashville, which I'm not 100% sure what the, like, why Nashville over any other city in America, but whatever, they chose Nashville. They had a little rally, so let's take a look at Matt Walsh's speech here. We're gonna do this at like 1.25 speed so that we don't run out of time, and if we have time, we're gonna watch his kind of follow-up from earlier today. So let's get going.
Number two, there's an immense amount of fear.
Oh my goodness, you're loud. Okay.
Driving all of this. I said that so many of the people I encounter on the street appear to be.
Right. You guys just let me know about
and some of them
the
actually
volume if it's all right.
One
if
woman
you want it up or
in
down.
particular was so committed to the relativistic view that we all have our own truths that when I asked her, what would happen if it was my truth that she no longer exists, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, well, then I don't exist. If it's your truth that I don't exist, then I don't. Now, I knew that women were being erased in our culture. I didn't realize that some of them were so eager to erase themselves. But more often I encounter people.
I obviously have no idea what he's talking about. We like started this in the beginning, and like this was like in the middle, so I have like no idea what he's talking about.
Whose confusion seems to be more of an affectation. You know, they give vague, dodgy answers to the questions because they're afraid to speak basic biological truths, especially afraid to do it on camera. There are many people.
Well, okay, so as usual, Matt Walsh, known biologist. Yeah, I mean, this is the difference. So this is a big thing about the right's campaign against trans people, where they want to say, where the right will constantly do this, these are biological truths, and these are simple answers. But as kind of is expected, there's not as simple of answers as a lot of these guys would really wish there were. The world is a bit more complicated. But again, I'm not sure how much of that is a misunderstanding on Matt Walsh's part, and how much of that is just a feigned interest in facts, interest in biology, interest in anything. Matt Walsh to me just kind of seems like somebody, if you ask me, it seems like Matt Walsh kind of just thinks trans people are icky, and it's a bit, to him, it just makes him personally uncomfortable, and he doesn't like that. So, he goes on these campaigns, grasping at any straws he can. We've heard Matt Walsh and his think of the children stuff. These people don't care about children, but let's just continue. Also, the guy thinks the problem is not underage young girls getting pregnant. He wants marriages between 30-year-olds and 16-year-olds. He thinks that's totally fine. So, also that.
We stopped on the street who refused to talk to us at all, telling us that they cannot talk about this with cameras rolling because they'll lose their job, their friends, and everything in their lives. So to be clear, their lives would be destroyed if they said something like, only women have babies on camera, or any similarly provocative statement. So gender ideology paves the way for itself with intimidation.
So I'm really tired of hearing this one. I don't know how tired people are. The whole gender ideology. Gender is a social construct in the same way that, we assign, what's the word? These terms to people in our society, such as, let's go, let's pick an easy one. So we have policeman and policewoman, right? Those don't exist in nature, not really a thing that exists anywhere. It is simply language that we use to help us contextualize interactions with other people. That's really all it is. It's created by society to make communication easier and understand, you know, how to adjust language. This is really not like super complicated. You know, we can, you know, for anybody who's new here, we can talk about my personal favorite thought experiment when it comes to the gender roles. But, you know, at the end of the day, Matt's just gonna kind of pretend like he's some kind of biologist or some kind of science, just a guy who's interested in the facts and science, and quite frankly, the facts and science disagree with him. So,
and threats, coercion, fear is a big part of the story.
Right.
The third thing I learned is that none of this is new. At
That's
least not
correct.
as it seems anyway. So the roots of modern gender ideology can be traced all the way back to the 19th century, arguably even earlier than that, as the author Carl Truman explained in our film and also in his great book, which I highly recommend.
It's almost like trans people have been around for ever. Same with gay people, and that it's not some new phenomenon.
Called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, if you've never seen that or read that book. He talks about how the stage was set with the birth of what some philosophers have dubbed psychological man. And that is when human beings began to prioritize their own emotional well-being above all else and to see emotional contentment as life's primary aim and purpose. So man moved away from defining himself based on and seeking joy in his roles and responsibilities within larger social structures, the family, the church, the nation, even the workplace.
So yeah, I mean, okay, is that bad? I'm sorry, I forgot the part where I live for society, where I live for structures. See, this is a big difference between someone like Matt Walsh and myself, because Matt Walsh at the end of the day needs a structure for him to fit into. Matt Walsh needs this role to play. He needs to be the strong man. He needs to be the head figure. He needs a role. This guy needs a biological daddy. And that's the difference between me and him. I don't need those things. And some people, and not everyone he does. A lot of people are perfectly content with their lives without having families, without with only worrying themselves, with only concerning themselves with living their best life for themselves. And to Matt Walsh and other fascists like him, life is not to be lived for the experience of life. You must be fighting or driving towards some big campaign. You always, life is always a battlefield to these guys. There's always something you need to be trying to take or trying to forward or trying to, do whatever whatever it is that is. To Matt Walsh, it is difficult to live the life of just, of oneself, of just living and doing the things you want to do and living the way you would like to live. To Matt, you need to be having babies for your country or for your village or whatever it is. You need to be, there's all these, you need to be doing this or that thing, whether it makes you happy or not. And what he's talking about is people coming to the realization, or at the very least an understanding, that you being happy is the only thing that's important. Anyway, let's keep going.
Away from that, and increasingly his life revolved around his self-perception. And whatever he did was in service to that self-perception. And now we've gotten to a point where for an individual, it's not only that their self-perception is the only thing that they care about, but they expect that it's going to be the only thing you care about. That their self-perception is your project. It's your chore. It's something that you have to take responsibility for.
I mean, you should certainly respect people's decision to choose their own path in life. I feel like that's not controversial.
And that's the stage upon which the gender ideology drama has played out, and that really began to take its current shape in the mid-20th century thanks to the work of two hideously evil crackpot degenerates named Alfred Kinsey and John Money. who together, along with a few others, shaped gender ideology.
Remember, degenerate, says the guy who wants 16-year-olds marrying like 40-year-olds.
As we know it today, excuse me. Number 4, I learned that the ultimate goal of the gender ideology agenda goes far beyond gender. You know, the ultimate goal is to undermine, destroy, and erase truth itself.
Ah, yes. Because that's the thing. I, as a leftist, would like to see gender destroyed so that all truth, all facts can be destroyed. Like, you know, I don't... To these guys, I really... I can't stress it enough that this is fascist rhetoric and this is fascist obsession. Because at the end of the day, to him, there is this, like, what, multiple 100-year project of people trying to undermine what? What, Matt? What? What? You just say truth, man. Say truth and facts, and I'm sorry, you know, as somebody who like respects science and is like, you know, I was shit at chemistry, biology, geography. Actually, I wasn't awful at geography, I think. But you know, as like these guys like speak in such nothing vague language, because when he says, you know, when he says truth or whatever, you know, whatever these broad terms are, that unspecific broad terms, he doesn't know what he's not talking about anything, because it's you that's supposed to do the job. You're supposed to fill in the thing that you think people don't get right. Gender ideology is the basis for how they're going to be wrong about that thing. Like it's tying everything together as this all-encompassing campaign. It's conspiracy. That's what it is. It's conspiracy, and it's brain rot. So also, you know, always keep that in mind. Like that's also, there's always this tide that like these guys are fighting against and pushing back against, and it's not there. It's not that. It's a mirage. It's just, there have always been people who have been trans, and they would just like you to not be an asshole. But unfortunately, there are some just insist on being assholes. And we had to pass, and you know, before that, they were assholes about people who weren't the same skin tone as them. Before that, they were assholes about people who weren't the same religion. Some of those are still true. But, you know, we always deal with these assholes. Matt Walsh is nothing new. Matt Walsh is just another asshole who doesn't respect other people. And when asked to do the basic common respect of respecting people's identity and respecting people for who they are, Matt can't do it. So what does he do? He grasps to anything he can. He grasps to science he doesn't believe in because it doesn't agree with him. If you showed him the scientific studies, if you showed him the consensus, he would say, oh no, I did, like, that might be what all the scientists and doctors are saying, but because I disagree with it inherently, that doesn't count. You know, this isn't objective to him at the end of the day. He will move the goalpost no matter what, because at the end of the day, he doesn't respect these people. He thinks they're icky, he thinks they're weird, he wants them out of his society. But I'm sorry, man, that's not how this works. It's not how this works.
Leftism is relativism, and relativism is the belief that there is no objective truth, there is no shared reality, there's no universal fact that we all have to conform around and submit ourselves to. The relativist claims the right to invent his own universe for himself, even to the point of inventing himself. He seeks to be a self-created being, making and remaking himself as he sees.
Oh, also, we should also mention, Matt Walsh is also rather religious. So to him, the idea of man, of any person choosing their own path, any person, you know, going their own way, not only with like in the material world, but in a more like core sense of like self, a person straying from, and let's be honest, to him, Jesus and his God is already an affront to him. That's already bothering him, that people have that much internalized confidence that you know, you must, to him, you always have to remember that you are of somebody else instead of your own person. Keep that in mind.
He's fit right down to the biological level. He believes that his ego overrides everything. Everything must bow before it. Language, institutions, science, even his own DNA must bow to his ego. This is why I found myself in the film speaking to Pontius Pilate over and over again. You know, what is truth? He asks in Scripture. And the same thing the gender.
There it is.
Well, what is truth? Who's
wait,
truth?
wait. Is this guy pro Pontius Pilate? I wouldn't be shocked if he was, but that'd be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, how much do you want to bet? How much do you want to bet that Matt Walsh was pro Pontius Pilate's administration because he probably blames the Jews for getting Jesus killed instead of the state? Just to guess, how many of you think that's accurate?
It's truth. I was sitting in the same room as them, but they would not agree that we were situated in the same reality. So we can share a room, but we can't share a universe, they tell us. Because they get their own, they insisted.
Dude, you believe in a flying man in the sky. We don't live in the same... We do not live in the same reality. You live in a very different reality. Not literally, just kind of mentally.
Ultimately is what this is all about. But here's the good news, number 5. Here's the other thing I learned. The final thing I learned from spending a year staring into this abyss is that we can win this fight. You know, gender ideology is insane, destructive, pervasive, ubiquitous. I believe the greatest evil that the world has ever seen. It's also beatable.
Couldn't possibly be the Nazis. Has to be gender ideology.
It's weak and it's flimsy.
What did we say about the fascism stream, guys? The enemy is both overwhelmingly strong and incredibly weak. The enemy is always, the power level of any enemy of a fascist is always whatever they need it to be in any sentence. Because listen to this. Let's go back really quick.
Beatable. It's what the world has ever seen. Pervasive, ubiquitous. I believe the greatest evil is that we can win this fight. You know, gender ideology is insane, destructive, pervasive, ubiquitous. I believe the greatest evil
the greatest
the world has ever seen.
Evil.
It's also beatable. It's weak and it's flimsy.
It's weak. It is the greatest threat, but it is also weak and flimsy. Remember this, because when he wants his audience to be scared, he says they are strong. And when he wants to motivate them, he reminds them that they are weak, that they are the powerful. That is what a fascist looks like.
Well, do you really want to die on this hill? Is this the hill you want to die on, they always say to me? And they say that about everything I say. And in fairness, sometimes I do pick some rather odd hills to die on. But about this particular issue.
Yeah, like child-adult marriage. I'm going to keep saying that, by the way. I want everybody to remember that. I want to get that very clear. I'm not going to get off that hill because, quite frankly, Matt Walsh's entire career has been made on sticking up for children, allegedly. Meanwhile, he holds monstrous opinions on child marriage, on child consent. Like, no, I'm not gonna stop mentioning that.
I hear that a lot. Why is this? Why do you want to die on this hill? Will I die on this hill? The answer is yes. You know, I will die on this hill. If there's any hill worth dying on, it's the hill of objective truth. Because if we surrender...
Understand the subjective truth this guy is like defending with like fucking like Mjolnir. Understand the objective truth this guy is like obsessively like going to bat for is the truth that like when he goes to Starbucks, he's upset when a person who like wears a hat and looks kind of feminine but also looks kind but not quite enough to maybe be a guy might have a little name tag that says they them. or she, her, or he, him, understand that is the tyranny that he has gone on this campaign against. That's the thing that is upsetting him to his core. Just keep that in mind. Like the objective truth he's upset about is all centered around like some gendered name tags.
If we surrender, this is why I always ask conservatives who are willing to surrender the hill. I say, well, what's your plan from here?
Surrender. 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 Surrender.
Where do you go from there?
Surrender.
What hills are left after you've given that up?
Oh yeah, and it's also Matt Walsh also always does this is the last, this is the final stand. He like everything is Avengers Endgame to him. It's always this is the last stand. We need everybody to portal in with the music, like we're here. That's kind of how it always is.
I'll die on this hill, but I don't plan on it. I don't want to. As General Patton said back in the days before the military cared about equity and tolerance, he said, "No bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making some other poor dumb bastard die for his." And I kind of feel that.
What does that have to? First of all, if you think the military, okay, we're not going to get into the military and diversity.
That way about the hills that we're all metaphorically fighting on. I would say the same for the hill. This fight for truth, this struggle against gender lunacy.
What if I don't want to fight on? What if I don't want my life to be dying or fighting on hills?
Under the weight of simple questions. I saw this happen time and time again before my very eyes, right? The learned, the educated, the experts crumpled and collapsed and panicked in front of me. Me, a bumpkin in a flannel armed with a high school diploma. Now, is that because I'm brilliant? That is my preferred adjective.
Clearly not.
That's how I self-identify. And handsome, thank you. That's how I identify. It's my truth. But no, fortunately for me, brilliance is not actually required. If it was, then I couldn't be in this fight. All we have to do is just stand up, look this thing directly in its face, and ask it questions. Serve it a healthy dose of skepticism. Force it to explain itself. It has to explain itself. The burden of proof is on it. Gender ideology, the person who comes promoting gender ideology, they have to explain themselves.
Okay, so since he's throwing out the challenge, I'll make it really easy for. I'll answer this question very simply. Matt Walsh asks, "What is a woman?" To which the response is, people who identify as women. People who prefer or identify under the social roles that have been defined for females. These are people who find more in common with women who are generally more feminine, have more feminine traits, have more feminine interests. These are people who just simply identify more with femininity than they do masculinity. That's it. That's really it. Females are people born with female genitalia. Women are the social role that females play. A woman is a person who a female grows into, because we don't call girls women, do we? We don't. I know they'll say, "Oh, a woman is adult human female." Okay. Well, there are quite a few things that we identify as women that aren't adult and aren't female. Because also, when it comes down to it, when we talk about then what is a female, it's like, oh, well, you need to have people who can have kids. And then it's like, well, some women can't have kids. Some females can't have kids. Are those females now not women? Are all women females? Are all females women? You know, at the end of the day, one of them is biological. The other one is social. It's not really all that hard. But, you know, Matt Walsh feigns ignorance as always in understanding the difference between social roles and biological realities. So, there you go, Matt. You can go ahead and use this if you want. If you ever see it, you probably won't. But it's not really all that hard. It's pretty simple. Women are people who exist under the womanly social roles. Females are females. That's it. Anyway, let's keep going. We have a little bit more, and then I got to skedaddle. I want to clear that up for everybody.
And they say, well, what do you mean men can't have babies? Well, explain that. No. I don't need to explain that. Okay, I am in alignment.
If a man has a vagina and a uterus and all the rest of those parts, then a man could conceivably have a baby. A male cannot have a baby. That is true. But men, very, 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 very small percentage of them can. Because men is a social role, and male refers to dicks, basically.
With the entire history of the human race. You came along 15 seconds ago and said that, no, everybody who's...
Ooh, see, didn't he mention 15 seconds ago? Didn't he just mention that there was, like, trans stuff in, like, the 1800s or 1900s? Again, this isn't new, guys. None of this is new. People like this have always been around. There have always been feminine men. There have always been masculine women. That is a thing that has always existed throughout time immemorial. The only difference is we actually understand a little bit more of that kind of stuff now. That's the only real difference, is that there's explanations around it. And, like, you know, nowadays we don't stone people to death like they did back when Matt Walsh probably wishes he was alive.
Ever lived is wrong about this. Okay, well, you know what? You need to explain that. The burden of proof is 1,000% on you. So you prove to me that a man can have babies. You prove that to me. And if you can't, get the hell out of my face. Now, sir.
Matt, it's already happened. Like the funny thing is I'm like, my dude, it's probably already happened. You want proof? I'm sure you can find a trans trans female a trans woman who's had babies because they haven't had bottom surgery yet. Like, I can almost guarantee you that's happened. So I don't know what to tell you, friend.
But they can't. They can't prove that. Not only can they not prove that a man can have babies, they can't even tell you what a man is. They can't answer anything. They have perched themselves on a limb that isn't even connected to a tree. They're anchored to nothing. Their worldview is empty and frail and flimsy. So we don't need to be armed with anything but a spine. For all the talk accusing me and others of advocating violence or being terrorists, the only thing we're coming armed with is, a spine and questions. That's all we have. You just have to have enough to stand up straight and ask the questions that they cannot answer. The questions that, for that reason, are not supposed to be asked. But we must ask them. And if we do, we will win. And we must win, too. That's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, yeah. So, fascist speech, pretty, when it comes to Matt Walsh, at the very least, that was actually fairly subdued. But overall, it kind of hits on the usual Matt Walsh isms of pretending to be a biological scientist or even educated in the field at all, and also just doing his usual like his saber rattling about that sort of stuff. So I mean, it's, you know, at the end of the day, these guys want trans people dead. Like that's just kind of, they just want them out of their society. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate that Matt Walsh is at least open about it. You know, Ben Shapiro, not quite as open about it. But Matt Walsh, shockingly, perfectly fine with that sort of rhetoric. Which, you know, you gotta, points for honesty, I suppose. Yes, I guess. But yeah. So anyway, let's see, how much time do we have? Do we have time for more video? So I think we have time for one more video, sadly. No, we do not. No, there's no way. That's too long. Even if I put it at two times speed, it'll be just a bit too quick. I feel like I won't be able to understand half of what Matt is saying. So that's it for today. Oh my goodness. Thank you. I appreciate you for joining. You were here. Okay, 1 second. Let me like reset really quickly. No. Okay, no. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So, I appreciate everybody. Yeah. It's been fun. That's going to be the end of today's stream. I encourage anybody, if you enjoyed any of this, please hit that follow button. As you can see, we're up at 19 now. The 19 right there. That's looking good. Yeah, goal is to get to 100, and then I'll start to multi-stream hopefully onto Twitch and YouTube, and we'll go from there. But yeah, appreciate you. Glad you stuck around. Yeah, if you yeah, I think that's really it. I gotta go make dinner and do a bunch of house chores. But yeah, we'll be streaming tomorrow. I'm aiming around 1 o'clock or so. I'm hoping to do a bit of a longer stream tomorrow, a lot more topics. But for now, I'm gonna be signing off. So you have a lovely Monday. Hopefully you're not having a case on the Mondays, but you have a lovely Monday, and I will see you tomorrow.